Welcome to the 2022 Finals Tournament to decide the year's worst scene from streaming content. There has been no shortage of poorly written, insultingly contrived lecturing and pandering moments this year, and no easy task deciding upon a final 8, but let's get straight to the action. The first quarter finalist is this scene from She-Hulk Attorney at Law. A hideously CGI-rendered version of She-Hulk twerks with rapper Megan Thee Stallion in a scene the writers evidently enjoyed writing over a few wines, more than the overwhelming majority of the viewing public would appreciate streaming on their 50-inch flat screens, especially given the confronting close-ups of a profoundly expansive and muscular rear would have to have been painstakingly rendered by digital artists who would have expended countless late nights trying to composite and refine the footage, doubtlessly leaving a quiet, bitter sense of demoralized resentment at being dragged to such a low by the dictates of the script. Facing up against She-Hulk twerk is this sustained sequence from Kenobi, a key scene not merely for its preposterously contrived chase, but for being the moment when a multitude of viewers clinging on to some notion that the show might still prove to be watchable, saw it descend into a ridiculous, insultingly dumb mess that dragged the already diminished reputation of Star Wars further into the mire. Despite tottering along at 0.2 miles an hour, young Princess Leia is able to avoid the clutches of brawny mercenaries and kidnappers, led, Christ knows why, by Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And, perhaps unsurprisingly, despite the gratuitously crass and awful spectacle of She-Hulk's quivering and undulating ass, the first semi-final spot goes to Leia escaping. In the second quarter final matchup, She-Hulk once again presents a stiff challenge with a gruelingly cringe, idiotic and self-indulgent scene where She-Hulk invites a man back home to her apartment, and after returning from a brief detour into a parallel dimension, scoops up the man in her arms and proceeds to carry him through to the bedroom for a session of what I can only assume, through her hyper-enhanced physiognomy, bulk and pulverizing stamina, would likely end with him being ridden to within an inch of cardiac arrest. The second contender is this aggravating, perplexing, insufferably pretentious, grandiose, vainglorious, verbose, and pseudo-profound flow of pungently streaming horseshit from The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power. Little Galadriel looks on earnestly as her older brother drools out a warm rhetorical saliva of a twisted analogy or metaphor about ships, stones, and the sun, delivered in a knowing, ironical cadence, while Galadriel would probably just prefer it if he helped her replace the limp and damp paper boat. And 99% of viewers turn to each other on the couch and murmur, "What the fuck is that bloke talking about?" A crushing victory on this occasion, She-Hulk, for all her wine mom, toe-curling idiocy, is no match for the perfect storm that is ship and stone. Moving on, our third quarter has a worthy contender in this dreadful scene from Picard Season 2, which features the painfully incongruous spectacle of venerable Shakespearean actor Patrick Stewart overlaid with the opening strains of a soulless R&B cover version of the classic 60s hit California Dreamin', which then segues to two other members of the cast time-traveling to California a few years hence, a scene that portends California screenwriters horrifically indulging and self-inserting an entire state into the already crumbling and dilapidated Star Trek intellectual property, and mashing it full of climate change and homelessness social issues. Up against geriatric Picard is yet another scene from The Rings of Power, featuring the irrepressible Galadriel, where two rival girl boss strong female characters face off, watched on by a nominally masculine but in fact completely passive, sidelined and irrelevant man, with the Queen Regent dismissing Galadriel, only for the incorrigibly undismissible Galadriel to screw her face up in flickering twitches like a testy version of Samantha in the sitcom Bewitched, and declare she has a tempest in her, which is not only a moment of attempted drama falling flat on its ass, but also a direct ripoff of Cate Blanchett's "I Have a Hurricane in Me" speech from Elizabeth the Golden Age. Perhaps as no surprise to anyone, the multiple layers of shittiness in the "I Have a Tempest in Me" declaration are enough to propel Tempest in Me into a semi-final spot. With just one quarter-final remaining and just one semi-final place still up for grabs, there is a formidable contender in an excruciating scene from The Rings of Power involving Galadriel in insufferable strong female character girl boss overload. sanctimoniously lecturing and then dispatching young wannabe Númenórean soldiers in an unbearable sequence where the Númenóreans, traditionally depicted as unswervingly powerful warriors, are here a hodgepodge of gangly and pudgy failed boy band auditionees who Galadriel swerves and spins around, constantly maintaining an expression of diabolical know-it-all smugness. Up against this, a glaringly terrible scene from Kenobi in which little Princess Leia is smuggled out under a trenchcoat, which is ridiculously bulbous and obvious to anyone, and features irresistibly cute little Leia taking a little sneak peek out at the crowded platform, where literally no one notices either her or the bearded guy shuffling along the deck. And another landslide victory in this quarterfinal, with the Leia trenchcoat scene gallantly but hopelessly going down to the irrefusable loathsomeness of the Rings of Power and the Númenor fight. Semi-Final 1 features two powerhouses of streaming content shit, but after a difficult confrontation, the Leia escape scene falters in being at least benignly stupid, whereas the ship and stone scene is insultingly, almost aggressively stupid, getting the viewers back up, engaging them in speculation about how such screenwriters are hired, paid, and retained, and spawning a succession of internet memes and sailing into a deserved final spot. The second semi-final is a closer contest, with Rings of Power battling itself to a standstill, but ultimately the reprieve of being relatively brief means Tempest and Me ultimately succumbs to the sustained, achingly stupid and indulgent farce that is Númenor Fight, which manages to erode attention span, masculinity, and faith in Western culture. So, to the final, and a clash of the titans between the shit sandwich that is the Númenor Fight versus the roaring dumpster fire of Ship and Stone. And, after a brutal contest, the Tournament of Trash has crowned Ship and Stone as the undisputed winner of Worst Scene in Streaming Content for 2022. After a significant showing from the Rings of Power, it has dominated the field this year. But after a year of consuming streaming content, the real winners are absolutely no one.